Hi, and welcome to a discussion about establishing a community college in the central Susquehanna Valley in Pennsylvania, specifically in the counties of Montour, Northumberland, Snyder, and Union. This effort's been going on for more than a decade, but we've really gained traction in the last year. So board members of the nonprofit doing the work, the Susquehanna Valley Community Education Project, we've agreed that it's a good time to have a conversation about this, talk through where we've been and where we're going. So I'd like to just introduce really quickly. We have Lanier Alam, the Executive Director of SVCEP. We have Hank Baylor, the Board President of SVCEP, and Northumberland County Commissioner and Chair of the Public Engagement Committee of SVCEP, Megan Beck. So I just have, we'll get started on this conversation, but I thought we'd start off with talking about why community college in this area. Pennsylvania already has 15 community colleges, so isn't that enough? And why would we need one in this area? Who wants to launch?
Commissioner? Okay, sure, I'll launch. What's interesting about Pennsylvania and community colleges is that during the initial influx, whenever community colleges were being launched, there was a mission to establish all these community colleges in Pennsylvania. Most of them got established around urban areas. And then the expectation was that they would organically grow up around the rest of the state. But that just didn't seem to happen. A couple more were established, but they it requires a really monumental grassroots effort to get one established. So we saw one established a few years ago in Erie, Pennsylvania, but that was there hadn't been one in over 20 years prior to that. So so we're hoping to break that mold as well and make the breakthrough and get established here.
Great. One question I know that we all four of us get is, why aren't the institutions that are already in this area enough? We have Susquehanna University, two private universities. We have some other institutions. So what would be different about the community college?
Wow. First of all, I have to tell you, I got a phone call from a young lady that said, would you like to join? I don't even know the acronym, SVPCE, something like that. I'm just kidding. I do know the acronym. And I said, community college, what do we want one of those for? We have Triangle Tech, we've got Penn College, and I go through this list of institutions. I hate to use that word, but it is. And I realized that there's nothing around here, not anything around here. And she convinced me that we're going to get this project going, and we really like you to join. So I did, and I found out a lot of things about the lack of, and that there are acts done by the state that aren't followed and haven't been, like having a community college within 23 or 26 miles of every resident. We're not even close to that. In fact, if you look at the community colleges, which of course they got me into finding all this information out, there's no community college close enough that a person can drive to affordably and get some kind of leg up on improving their education and getting a better job. So I think that we need to we as a community, a regional community, understand that there just ain't no union or community colleges around. That's cost effective.
Yeah,
and that's a big deal. Yeah. Adding the gas and the fact that they have to drive so far, extra time. People just don't want to go all the way to Harrisburg to get an associate's degree.
Right. Or have the ability to do that. That's really the bigger challenge, right? Someone who's raising their children or is maybe, really hamstrung financially might not have the transportation or a driver's license. There's all these reasons that people can't commute outside of our area to get that education. And it's those people that are the demographic for the community college. We want to meet people where they are so that they can grow in place, grow in here and help build our economy to be more robust and support our local businesses. And I look at it as an educational fabric, right? We've got this, we've got our K through 12, we're trying to get all this youth education for the pre-K. But what happens once they become 18? Hank, you bring this up a lot, right? It's just a cliff after someone turns 18. Yeah. You have to make this launch into a four-year institution or, which is very pricey and is usually outside of our area. We have very amazing institutions in our area, and we really do. but there's this gap for that 2-year programming or just credits or credentialed or certificate programs. Yes, there is, a couple branch campuses locally, but you can't graduate most programs here, and a lot of them aren't technically based. We want to focus on
Well, they're not even accessible for someone in Mifflinburg. They've got to travel a long way just to go to Sunbury. You've got to go across the river. You're on the other side. You're way up there. It's not cost effective for them to do that.
So the big difference is that, just sort of sum up, or it's very expensive. These large 4-year private.
The other opportunities, the other opportunities that are here are expensive. We're
expensive in terms of money and time, because
Right.
you have to commit to at least 4 years to finish.
When I graduated from high school, I'm taking all this time here, Lynn, I want you to say something now. This is really important. When I got out of high school, actually before I got out of high school, I don't know how many people out there know who Archie Bunker is. My dad was Archie Bunker, and he said, 18, you're out of here, or you start paying rent. I mean, he was serious, and he did that to my 2 brothers and sister, and they got the message. Well, I didn't have any place to go. I had no job. I was making dilly bars at Dairy Queen. That's how you make them. And I had a couple of options. One is to try to go to Harrisburg or up to Williamsport. I don't have a car. So I did the next best thing. I decided I'd join the Navy because the Vietnam War was on, had just pretty much started to get heated. And I thought, I joined the Navy. Man, I'll have to go to Vietnam. And I went to Vietnam. So my choices were really only go into service or get a food service job. Try to do fixing tires for a tire company or a auto maintenance company. So I did the right thing, and I didn't have to pay my dad any rent. So the bottom line is, if it wouldn't have been for the Navy, and when I got out, I went to a community college to better myself with the company that I got in with. If I not had that community college available, I wouldn't have been able to accomplish what I did. And that was Lehigh County Community College in Allentown. So anyway, that's why we need one. There isn't anything to jump onto when these kids graduate, or they can leave the area, which is called brain drain.
Right, yeah. That's what we want to avoid, is the brain drain.
And people don't realize until it's after it's done. We lost that 50% of our graduating class in Lewisburg last year. I don't know. It's probably more than that.
Right.
So,
and then the other challenge is, people who, maybe are partway through their career, and then how do they make that step up? They might only need a class or two, but, what's available in our area really to make that jump?
So why don't we talk about what is unique about a community college? Why is that particular model going to be good for this area?
Your turn, Lanier. Come on, go for it.
Community colleges serve their regional community. The sponsor of the community college creates a board of trustees by appointment, and then there is a devotion to the region that they're serving, the businesses and the residents of that region, that make it uniquely for that community. And community colleges are open access, so students don't have to score really well on an SAT or an ACT to qualify. They can even come in on a GED, and GED programs at community colleges are very commonplace. I think we only have one GED program in this entire valley.
Oh, wow.
Who's that through?
Through the CSIU at the Career Link in Sunbury. Another reason is because they make themselves, the community college is accessible to the residents, and with the hybrid solutions that we have now through internet and online learning, and our model of a distribution across the sponsoring counties, residents would have access to this community college. And then the affordability. So because there's sponsorship and the state, local sponsorship, and the state also puts in funding, a student who in this area, we'll just say is at federal poverty level or state poverty level, qualifies for the Pell Grant. That becomes the federal portion, the student only has a maybe at the most, some thousands of dollars, a few thousands of dollars a year, $2,000 or $3,000 a year in a 2-year program. It's $5,000 or so. That's an affordable community college if you have to go into debt. But at $7,000 a year for a full-time student, comparatively, that's a bargain.
It's $37,000 to go to Penn Tech.
That's the annual?
That's the annual fee. $37,000. That's amazing.
So we're talking about a small fraction of that for a community college.
7,000. Is that with or without grants? That's
without grants.
So
if they
go ahead and maybe fill in the back that the actual out of pocket is not bad at all.
Exactly, and that's what I was alluding to, that a student that qualifies for Pell Grant, they may not get the full $7,000, but if they have accumulated debt through going to the community college, it could be about $5,000 for the 2-year program, just to put it out there as
$2,500 a year.
Right.
Wow.
Right, and so it's much more affordable than the large indebtedness that we're seeing, and the reason why students have to remain at home in order to try to make ends meet. And another reason it's really important is because there's this aligning with the businesses of the region who are employing. So students come into the community college with a trajectory of gainful employment with an employer in that region. So it's a way of tightening that pipeline so that the students aren't having to go elsewhere to find employment. They will be employed here. We work as a community college. We work specifically to please those employers. There has accountability to the community college. Because they're locally sponsored, those sponsors want to see the data. Show us what you're doing. Are you fulfilling your mission to train students in our area, and our businesses finding them to be employable? Are they gainfully employed, and are they now participating in our community and making contribution?
I have a question for the two of you.
Oh, I was going to make a comment about that, but
I'll forget it if I don't say it.
I know the feeling.
I forgot about the meeting today. I didn't. Thank goodness. What in the world came to you to want to do what you're doing individually? I know why I did. I was duped. So, and aside from that, why? You've been at this for 15 years, Leonard. One of the questions I constantly get is, why is it taking so long? I mean, it must not be a very good product, or you'd have this thing up and running. But what motivated you to do it, aside from the fact that you're PhD in education? But
I just want to say that's an excellent question, and it was my next question. Oh, sorry. No, that's...
Ignore the fact that I asked that
Look at the
question.
flow
Go
of this
ahead.
There
conversation.
we go.
Go ahead. Lanier, why? I'm really curious.
We get that question a lot of why does it take so long?
So it took Cambria County, it took them 20 years. There was many attempts to derail them and sabotage their project.
Why?
I think it's perceived as competition by other higher education institutions when, in fact, community colleges are fantastic feeders to these schools of 4-year degree programs with students that have already proven persistence, proven the capability. And I would just, applaud Bucknell University. They have got a premier community college scholars program, and they bring in top-level community college students who proceed into leadership positions in the area and across the country. So
So students can go anywhere from just getting a certificate program or a GED to getting a 2-year program, which can transfer them right into a 4-year institution, and they go into that 4-year institution without having the 2 years of high fees of it normally associated with a 4-year institution. They have, it's virtually at no cost for the first 2 years, and then they can get the great name of the higher ed institution after that.
So answer my question.
Yeah. Why
did
why are you in
why
it?
Did you,
Why are you
why
here?
did you do this?
Well, we moved to this area 23 years ago, and I was somebody who was looking for, where's your community college? And there wasn't one here. Then I finished my master's in education at Bloomsburg University, a fantastic education and institution. And then I heard about a student on the radio who was traveling from Sunbury to Nanticoke to complete an associate degree. And it just seemed so unreasonable that a student would have to drive that distance. And so I contacted the Department of Education, and I asked them, why isn't there a community college in this area? And the response was that area desperately needs a regional community college. Mm-hmm. So after that, I said to my husband, do you mind if I get involved on this project? There's a lot to it.
Little did
and
he know.
he said, it is needed. And so I've had a great deal of support in this process. And so with Cambria County, it took 20 years. The same with Erie County Community College. It took them 18 years to get their community college established. And
why is that? I mean, it's not just because it takes a long time. It has to do with the process that you have to go through. So
it's the process, but you have to build a community consensus around the concept, and that takes a long time because you're networking, but the network is very loose-fitting at first, and it gets tighter, and then you've got to send more information out into that network, and that takes a long time.
Yeah, all the studies show. I mean, I always joke that we could fill any room, neck high with all this paperwork that supports why it's a great idea. All the data says it's there, but it's really the political will that has to evolve. So you need the grassroots support, and then you need the political support, and you need all of those people to kind of come to a consensus to realize it's true. We don't have the other opportunities here, and not only do we not have the other opportunities here, they are disappearing quickly, rapidly. What we were barely holding on to is disappearing in that those careers for people for the middle income mid career. I'm not sure the correct
why
terminology.
did you join?
All right, let me finish my point, and I'll get to that. Mine's very. I have a much less interesting origin story than Lanaire's, but my point is like we've lost our, like I just spoke with some folks from the Farm Bureau the other week, and they said there used to be a 2-year ag program in the area. There's no longer a 2-year ag program in the area. They're sending their daughter to, I think, Illinois, because she could go to a community college there. But again, not every parent's going to be able to send their student or have the forethought to send their student, to five states away for a program. Same thing with woodworking. We have a amazing committee of woodworking people in woodworking trying to move forward a woodworking certificate program because, it's been dropped. We have Triangle Tech, which is closed. Anyways, what I see is if we don't, and we'll get to, here's where I'll transition into my origin story. What I saw is, what is the biggest, I've always been involved in community development and economic growth, and how do we build our community building, both on the personal side and on the economic side, right? So what is the thing that can make the most difference? And I've been doing a lot of community development, and I stumbled across this project, and it just blew my eyes wide open. I was like, oh my gosh, I have not found another project since I started the project 8 or more years ago until now. I haven't seen another project that can do as much good, that can bring as much to individual people, to empower people in their own lives, and then also to help people build businesses and grow businesses in our area. The numbers from the reporting that we have from extremely reputable sources is that, we will bring $78 million in revenue over this next 10 years. As soon as it's launched, $78 million in economic growth. And that just, to me, as a person who wants to see our region grow, like if we're not doing something to help our region grow, it's going to slowly fade away. It's not just, it needs help to be pushed in a direction of positive growth. And so I don't see anything on the table that's as robust as a community college to make that happen. And that's what gets me excited about it, and it's so nerdy and so boring. But I mean, everybody else has such much better origin stories than I do.
Well, so let's
I'm very pragmatic, I guess.
let's unpack that. Yeah, I mean, I've been hearing since I've been involved for the past few years that there's going to be once the community college established, a great economic advantage for the area. So what does that look like? Both for the area broadly, but also how's that going to affect individuals, families, households?
The key is for family sustaining wages, really, right? We want to have career programs that will provide family sustaining wages. People who may be in a single parent household, or that may have gone through substance abuse and are trying to find stepping stones to find their way back to a stable life and be able to support a household. May also be somebody that just, in high school, they're just like, I'm not a good student, and like, I hate school. And
There's a lot of that.
I never want to go to another class when I hit 18.
Yeah, like you're 18 and you can't imagine yourself in college, and still for the rest of your life, there's no options. That's
right.
crazy.
So like you go, or you drop out of school. Oh my gosh, the dropout rates in our region are so demoralizing, completely demoralizing to see how many kids don't graduate. So those young people need to figure out that they need a GED. So it's going to take time for them. I mean, it's not that the K-12 district, the K-12 system failed them. It's just that sometimes people aren't ready. There are a lot of people that just aren't ready to adult when they're 16, 17, and 18 and ready to go off to that four-year institution with that big commitment. And so these people are on the opposite end of that spectrum. They're a little bit lost. And a lot of times they don't find their way back on track until they're 25, 27, 28. And that's where the community college sees their average age of student is around 27, 28, because it's people either, going through career transitions or people who are just now finding their way, right? And if they don't have stepping stones, then they just are going to continue to drift. And we don't want them to continue to drift. Yeah. We want to give them the chance to be empowered to so many times I hear all these great stories, so many personal stories. I wish I had as good a one as so many of these other people, but just that one class at a community college led to greater self-confidence, in that one little pebble turned into another pebble and another, and then all of a sudden they're the president or the chair of pediatrics at Geisinger. Like, it is unbelievable where a community college can take a person. And if they don't have that ability to take stepping stones, we're really putting all of our community at a disadvantage.
Yeah. Well, so in terms of the money, because that's a concern to people too, with that $78 million over 10 years, what's that come from? I mean, higher wages, but...
Yeah. Leonard, do you want to go over the sort of the spectrum of it?
So the sponsorship request that we've put out there based on our work with Dr. Randy Smith, who helped us to develop an initial budget and pro forma, is $1.2 million a year for a multi-county sponsorship. And so that translates to $12 million over 10 years. The $78 million is the return on that investment that will include the state portion, the students portion, and then the increase in the tax base from gainful employment.
Right, okay.
So all of those combined bring about that $78 million. And it is proven that this is what the community colleges...
We didn't pick that out of the sky, right?
No,
how can you say this is a good thing to say when, what proof do we have that there's going to be a 600% return?
So because of the protocol that we look at in the community college, right? in the community colleges, and the data that EMSI, which is now called Lightcast, uses when they conduct these economic impacts of community colleges, and in our case, forecasting what a Susquehanna Valley Community College would bring in for its economic impact. Yep.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I guess I'd like to jump just a little bit to maybe what the real issue is here. It's not that we don't need a community college. We do, big time. Mm-hmm. People realize that. But we're dealing now with, did we mention it's 1/3, 1/3, 1/3?
No, that's right, where we were getting to.
I was about to jump in and just point out that
in order to do this, it's called a community college. So the community has to support it. And how do they support it? Taxes. Mm-hmm. So, okay, who's in charge of the taxes? Mm-hmm. Well, the commissioners are at this level, at this particular requirement, because the state says you need a sponsor of 1/3 of the total cost, 1/3 of the 1.2 million. We're going to divide it by 4 because there's 4 counties. We go to the county commissioners, which we have several times, trying to say, here it is. It is a tax, but it's de minimis, $1.25 a month.
Per household.
Per household, not per person, not per person.
Right.
Per household, per year it's $15. We'll spend $15, meaning our commissioners and so on, in a heartbeat. We build a $5.5 million recreation kind of facility in the center of Lewisburg. I'm not putting them down. The money was there, so they used it. It's a beautiful park. Of course, what we could have done with that $5.5 million.
That would have been the first half of our 10-year requirement.
First half of the 10-year contribution.
Yeah, there's a 10-year requirement, just as a brief
that's
caveat,
right? It's a contract that we have with the county commissioners, right?
The Department of Ed requires that there be a 10-year local commitment, right? Because they want to make sure that it has a opportunity to get going. Yeah, so altogether over the course of that 12 million, 5.5 would get us halfway there to our 10-year commitment.
Megan and I made a presentation to a particular county commissioner. Mm-hmm. We did an excellent job. I really do believe we laid it out there. And he just looked at us and said, no new taxes. It's $1.25 a month per household. Yeah.
Is a tax the only option for paying?
Well, here's I think where the problem.
I thought we talked about this before.
Well, the problem I think it is, first of all, Megan and I are both poli-sci majors, right? Yeah. So we know a little bit about politics.
I feel the vibe.
Right. Sorry. Politics 101, first class, is politics is power. And in terms of why people run for office, with the exception of you, she ran for office and won, and I think you were doing it because you would be a vote for us. I mean, you gave up your life now to really become a county commissioner, and thank God you got it. At least that's one. That we know is going to vote for it. But the problem here is that people run for office. A whole bunch of people out to say this is not true, but it is true. People run for office for power. Now, power's not bad. You can use power for goodness, and you can use power for badness. Mm-hmm. And most of the people who run for office are there because they say, I am now a VP of, I have the power. And they don't use that power properly, in my mind, especially in terms of the county commissioners that we're dealing with right now. Mm-hmm. And I think they don't realize how much of an impact this is really going to be. They just say, I ran on a bill, on a platform that said no more taxes, and that's the way it's going to be, no more taxes. Yeah. And I answer to your question, it's a facade. They need an excuse. So they just go, oh, no more taxes.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be additional tax. I mean, there's so many ways to slice it. The funds can come from it doesn't have to come directly from taxes. It can be from foundations or businesses. It could be from within the current budgets. I mean, it's not any more than one payroll cycle for any of the counties. It is less than Union County pays for their library system. I mean, I think that shows like how reasonable of a cost it is. I mean, it's not a big cost, but the problem is we need to leverage those little bits of funds from each county to come together so that we can then get that grant I'm calling it a grant. It's not really a grant, but let's say that if there was a grant out there for $1.2 million for workforce development for our region, people would be on it. And that's what it is. It's $1.2 million coming from our state to our area that we can leverage with our own funds. So we can bring that money here, and then the student tuition, that's also getting folded into that. That might be FIA or Pell grants or, or private dollars. But all of that comes together. Then there's additional foundations and other grant money that will come in, and we can then focus those funds on the specific industries that need the support in our region. Like I was saying, woodworkers, electricians, there's just we need a fire hydrant of force of all these different workers coming into our local economy, and we've got a trickle. We just have a trickle.
What the commissioners don't realize is that over time, and this is going to be a long time span that it'll happen, is I know for sure, I'm a Lewisburgian, right? Actually East Buffalo Township, but basically Lewisburg. Lewisburg's going to be an octogenarian community in the next 50 years. There won't be anybody here to continue on with that, with Lewisburg. It's going to, but see, they have a staple industry, and that's the college. Well, consider the fact that there are other communities out there that are also experiencing brain drain, also don't have a place for people, and not anything to invite companies in because the talent's there. So we're not going to get any big people coming in and building manufacturing facilities that are going to use any of the people because the people aren't there. So we need to reverse that course, and the county commissioners can start that process just by signing off on $1.25 a month per household.
And those funds too, I mean, sort of going back around to the funds, like I said, it can be within their budget, it can be outside. There's, because it's educational, it doesn't have to be within the current county millage. I know counties feel so hamstrung, and I see it every day now. I was seeing it on occasion, but now I see it every day. They're so hamstrung by the way that we tax, but you can have a line item outside of the regular budget for education. So it's an investment. I mean, everyone I think generally sees education as an investment, especially a community college, where we see even where, enrollments are dropping at four-year institutions because we've realized not everybody needs a four-year degree. Those community colleges, it's maintaining stable and increasing, right, Linaire?
It sure does. Couple thoughts that, as we've had this discussion, come to mind. The county commissioners can be assured that the public supports this because we've collected over 5,000 petitions in the past probably 6 years. We've been at fairs and festivals all across this valley and have met thousands of people who have said this is desperately needed in our region. The other thing that pertaining to your question was there is the $1.2 million that the commissioners would sponsor, and they are the catalyst to all of the other monies coming in. They are the catalyst. Once they sign resolution of sponsorship, the state puts in a match. The students, yes, that first year, second, third year is right about at the 1/3 contribution, but it actually balloons once you start getting all of those students enrolled, and it far exceeds what that 1.2 million that the counties are contributing. And so, that's really key here. That's how we see this economic impact forecast being a 600% increase.
I think it's really important for people to understand that it isn't just the commissioners the counties putting in the money, but that it is a shared responsibility, and including for students. Even if the students can get grants, it's still on them to either pay out of pocket or find the money somehow, and so they have to have some skin in the game. But I think that shared responsibility is a point that sometimes gets lost in this conversation.
Absolutely. It's really about empowering people. You know what I mean? It's like it's like I said, it's bringing these opportunities to them so that they can take a footstep in the right direction and allowing them to blossom. You know what I mean? And growing, as an individual without having the hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt.
So, 15 years. It's been going on a long time, but there's been a lot of progress I've seen in the past year. since I've gotten back involved. So let's celebrate that a little bit. So let's talk about some
We
of
don't
the
have
things.
any maker. The things that go out when you blow.
Yeah, right.
Noise
Noisemakers.
But what's been going well? I mean, I can think of, for one thing, I just want to point out for our audience, Susquehanna Valley Community Education Project is a small nonprofit that we're trying to create a community college or establish a community college, but so we're limited in resources, but there is some educational programming that we've been providing. So would one of you like to talk about that?
We worked very hard at getting a state-approved nursing assistant training and competency evaluation program. And that took us a good 3 years to get all of the paperwork and connections that need to be made, the entire application completed. And that was through the help of our university partner, Marywood University. They put $6,000 towards getting this program up and going. They gave an expert who writes these applications to us, who helped us to do that. And then they were there for our ribbon cutting. So, that university partner is key in the credibility and the establishment of a regional community college. So that program has now held its 4th graduating class, and Commissioner Beck was at that graduation.
How many graduates do we have now?
So we have about 15. We have 15 graduates from the program. All of them have passed that state exam, and they have also been gainfully employed in the region. Mm-hmm. So this is really key. But again, we're not permitted to charge tuition because we are only a small nonprofit, though the Pennsylvania Department of Education does recognize this enormous need, and so permitted us to offer this, but we have to scholarship every student. Mm-hmm. It costs $2,000 per student for a 3-week intensive course to be able to complete all of the requirements to take that state exam.
But we go to the trouble of having these small programs to prove that there's a need, right?
Desperate need.
Yeah. And especially for CNAs, my gosh.
Let's add to that.
I mean, we have a waiting list that's just huge.
It is.
I mean, we
have 14 on a waiting list.
Yes, I mean, this is what the capacity that we have to do as a small nonprofit, but this need is so much more. And it's not just in the healthcare, although we all know that there's needs in healthcare and that we're bringing in traveling nurses from wherever and paying them oodles of money when we could be paying that to people that live in our local region. But, as I mentioned, the ag, woodworking, introduction to manufacturing technology, there's a lot of programs out there that barely even require a 2-year degree. A lot of them are certificate programs that we could be helping to support our local businesses with.
And we have what's called a Central Pennsylvania Workforce Development Board, and they run reports on what employers are saying are their job vacancies. And currently, there are 8,000 job vacancies that are just high. Those are the high priority. There's medium and low priority jobs, which probably altogether there's likely to be about 12,000 job vacancies combined.
Wow.
The projection for high priority job vacancies by 2028 exceeds 10,000. So we're not mitigating what already exists, and the need is growing.
Yeah, it's just increasing.
One other thing that I've recognized as a big problem is that there is a fear out there, and maybe because they put so much time in building the structure that's there now, they want to keep it, and that is competition. And what we haven't been able to get across, I think, is that although the region people, basically the county commissioners again, have put, one of these big, any Star Trekkers out there will know that shield that came down, and Scotty always had to put that shield down when they came in touch with the Klingons. Well, we're kind of in touch. We're looked at as the Klingons coming in and invading this starship, and that's a false perception. We are not going to destroy the Enterprise.
That's very niche. Thank you for that.
I'm dating myself.
We're going to reach a different audience with that, I'm sure.
Well,
absolutely.
maybe we should because
Yeah,
they're the money
absolutely.
people.
Hopefully.
Beam me up.
Beat me up, Scotty. So, okay, so the problem is that they have this perception that we're going to invade the current structure. Well, guess what? If the current structure were magnified by 5 or 6, they still wouldn't meet the need.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
why be afraid? You know? So who said fear came knocking at the door, and they opened the door, and it was not fate. Yeah, fear rather.
It
Wasn't fear. So I messed that quote up, didn't I?
Okay.
So
I
it's
like
not-
the Klingon reference.
Yeah,
That's
that was much better. Thank you.
but I agree, right? We're not
lift our
like,
shields,
we're
Scotty.
We're not trying to we don't want to force anything on anybody. The key is that we're trying to solve a problem that we see in the region, that there's a ready-made solution for, that the state has packaged and given us a carrot to say, do this and we'll give you millions of dollars
That's right.
towards your workforce development. And for whatever reason, a lot of people are just hoping and wishing that we could do with what we have here. But hopes and wishes don't make things happen. You know, it's like we wish this would happen, but it's been 8 years. We've been here pushing and pushing, and that hasn't changed. As a matter of fact, it's gotten worse.
So speaking of making it happen,
Yeah.
what's the timeline, and what can people do to help with this?
I think that the most important thing we can do is get the information out there, because information is power. And the more information we get out, the more they have to be able to consider. And I think we're breaking through. We're starting to make an impression, and they're starting to understand the real value of this.
Yeah.
So, it's going to be a hard road from here till the time that we actually open our doors. It's going to be, at least if we had right now commitments from the commissioners, it's 3 years.
No, a year and a half.
Year and a half?
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know why I said 3 years.
Well, it could be 3 years from now, but at the same point, we would hope that we, whenever.
For the state to say you're authorized to
Yeah.
become a.
I'd say more 2 years, I guess. I guess
Okay,
it could
2
be 3,
years.
depending on the cycle of the school year. and things like
So,
that.
so I just think my personal opinion is we need to get the information out there to everybody, and we're doing that. We go to fairs, we get petitions signed, and Lynette, it looks like you're ready to say something.
Because what we're also seeing, and this is a critical part to this, and Megan, you already mentioned this too, is we are getting support from our U.S. congressmen, and when you have the U.S. congressman supporting you, who actually is chair of the U.S. Committee for Education and Workforce Development, that's a very powerful influencer who recognizes that there's a need here that can only be filled by a regional community college. And when taken into consideration that our congressman sees the panoramic view of what community colleges are doing across the nation, and that we have within Pennsylvania a community college desert, it becomes a force to be reckoned with when you have someone at that level who says this has to be done. And now we're seeing, the trickle down of that kind of influence to other political leaders who have the capacity to influence other politicians. And that's part of this process, and we're seeing that happen.
And it's really affirming the efforts that you've been putting in for 15 years.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
afraid we're going to have to leave it there.
Can I make
just want to jump?
Yeah, just one quick thing, and that is you had kind of asked us, like, what can people do? And we have, our website is here in the background, so newcommunitycollege.org. Go to our website, learn some more about the project. We don't want you to jump in feeling uninformed, but if you're excited, please go there, check it out. You can fill out a petition there. You can also get in contact with us. We would love to have more volunteers, and also talk with your elected officials, right? It's the elected officials who can make it happen, your county commissioners, your representative, whomever you might know. Please ask them to step up and try and help make this happen.
Hank, Lanier, Megan, thanks.
And James,
The conversation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This
very
is
much.
James
you.
signing off.
Good.
James T. Kirk.